Ken Flett, and this is my YouTube channel. I'm not sure where it's going. I'm showing you puppet stuff, carving, animation. I just wanted to say a few things about myself. So, in the 80s, early 80s, I went to Alberta College of the Art in Calgary. 4 years I studied photographic arts. And most of that 4 years I spent just riding around on my bicycle photographing people. Black and white. I would just go up to people and I would say, "Can I take your photograph?" And all those years, no one ever said no to me. No one said. And the good thing was that I smoked. That's the one good thing. Because it was a wonderful introduction. A lot of guys on the street are collecting cigarette butts, putting them in a baggie and re-rolling the tobacco, which tastes horrible, by the way. At the end of it, it's horrible. So, this young punk comes along with fresh new cigarettes and coffee. It's a treat. It's like, yeah. Anyway, that was the only good thing about smoking. This is Bill. I met Bill at the Toronto train station. I traveled across Canada by train for 1 month. I could get on and off. I think back then it cost $500. I could get on and off anywhere. I mean, it was coach, but it was great. Swift Current, all those dinky little towns. Anyways, Bill, he was so wonderful. He was just sitting on the bench smoking and with his baggie of picked up cigarette butts, and we chatted for about an hour. He told me all about places he had worked across Canada, and it was, he was rough looking. And when I first started photographing people on the street, I was always nervous but some of these rough looking guys, it'd just be the sweetest people. Sorry, that sounds ridiculous, but I remember this one guy in Calgary. He was all burnt up, and hair, and I used to see him around a lot. And finally, I went up and started chatting with him and gave him we smoked, and he was a sweetheart. He was just like a little kid. He was a sweetheart. He'd been in a bad rooming house fire. That's it. That's all. But how many people just were afraid of him, or afraid of saying hi? Yeah. These guys, I saw them. I was riding my bike on 9th Avenue, and I looked up this old apartment building, and they were looking out the window. I thought, that looks so good. So I went up third floor, and the door, luckily their door was slightly ajar. So I knocked, went in, and I said, "You guys look great. Can I take your photograph?" Yeah. And they were drinking their instant coffee and smoking up a storm. And another time these three guys invited me, we were chatting and smoking, and they invited me to this tin shack, and they were going to drink. But they were drinking Lysol. You puncture the bottom of the Lysol spray can, and you pour it into a gallon of water, and you just pass that around. It's a horrible thing. But I was lucky that they invited me. This was Mickey McGrath, originally from Newfoundland. Somehow ended up at the Colonel Belcher's Veterans Hospital in Calgary. That's where he died. I met him on the street. He was going to get cigarettes. Took him back to the Veterans Hospital, and he lived in a room with 3 other guys, curtains surrounding their bed. And I'd go there once a week, and we'd smoke Export A plain. I was still going to college. And I took him to my house once and we watched old black and white movies. He had all these wonderful stories, like boxing, merchant marina. Yeah, and he had a friend named Jello who used to come in and visit, an old guy. But he used to drink aftershave lotion, so he was all shaky when he came in. This is Mickey looking so happy. You know why he's happy? Well, for one, I brought my friend Denise, and you know, she's a pretty young girl, so he was just so, and I also brought a Mickey of rum, which was really stupid. But he always used to bug me, bring me a Mickey, bring me a Mickey. But, you know, he was an alcoholic for God's sakes, and he was in the Colonel Belcher's Veterans Hospital. Anyways, I was young and stupid. Although, yeah, it was dumb. Yeah. This was Wally Skulski. He used to always be standing outside this little store, and finally I went up to him and I said, "Can I come to your house and photograph you?" He said, "Sure." He gave me his address. The next day I went with this big, huge camera. He lived in a little rooming house, bare. And I photographed him, and I would come and see him once a week, and he'd bring him cigarettes, and we'd just sit there. He was quiet. He was quieter than me, and I was quiet. I'd ask him the odd question, "Where are you from?" Guelph. But when I traveled, that summer I traveled across Canada. I came back and found out he had died. And it just struck me that he had died without having someone love him. He just died alone on his bed, on his bare mattress bed, and I just thought it was such a horrible thing to die without someone there. Anyways, I kept photographing people and moved back to the island, and this is Mike Labrie. I mean, I could tell you a million stories. Well, I could tell you a lot of stories about Mike Labrie. When I was a kid growing up near Qualicum, I used to see him on his bike. He'd have a short skirt pulling this dog behind him. And years later, when I had a studio in Qualicum, he came in. He was kind of drunk. "You come to my place, you have coffee?" So I went. And it's this old log house. And the place was filled with smoke because the stove leaked, and there's bottles everywhere, and food, and shite. He was just like, it was incredible. But he was just sitting in his big old wooden chair.
What is it?
He was just like he had this humongous grin on his face. He was so happy, and he had Century Sam cigars, vodka. So I saw him every week. I would take him uptown to get some more booze, or
You gotta rewrite.
Century Sam cigars.
You gotta have.
Yeah, he was such an intelligent man. He was so, and he died when I was away as well. I went to Mexico City for 2 months, and I left my dear friend Ron to look after him, and he died when I was there. Mexico. Sorry. So Ron and I decided to do a play on him in Qualicum at the theater. We did it one night, filled the theater, and everyone afterwards said, "Oh, I wish I had met him." But you know, everyone thought he was just weird, and no one wanted to meet him when he was alive. Yeah, but he he was a wonderful man. Then I wanted more from my photographs. I wanted to add layers, and I started doing that. I just started adding layers. I mean, I've got hundreds. I'm just going to show you a few because this is getting long-winded. Alistair Starbuck very large painting I did. I was in Victoria, and I heard this guy yelling across the street. I went over and I said, "What are you yelling at?" And he just sort of got quiet, and we smoked. And after I did the painting, I took it to him and showed him. He said, "Why'd you put that little orange chair in there?" I had a little orange chair in the painting. I said, "For you to sit on." Anyways. Sorry. Sean and Claire. I did a few paintings of Sean. He gets to come in my studio. He was a young punk. And we're all punks when we're young, I think. Anyways. And him and Claire had had a night of, yeah, well, anyway. This was Willie Mae. She's a sweet young girl. She had cancer below her knee, so they took her leg off, and they put her foot on backwards on the knee so that she could wear a prosthesis. But she was wonderful. She would come into my studio and she would add little things to the painting. Or this was Isabel. She had cancer too. She had cancer 4 or 5 times before it finally killed her. Here's one of Mike Labrie, probably the best one I did of Mike Labrie, sitting in his chair. There's another big painting. But you know, in my paintings, there's always part of me in there. There's part of the relationship. There's them, there's me, there's... it's the same with my puppets. I guess this is the whole point. Helps it. It's the same with my puppets. It's like, you know, here's Frank. Frank is... Sorry. I can't... My arm's not long enough, but Frank, he is me. He is all those old men that I knew. He's a bit of everyone. And Becca, beautiful little Becca. Becca's so sweet. I love Becca. But she is people I've met. There's I don't know. Sorry, I'm fumbling for words here. Even Devin. Devin is like, he's like my brother. He's like my younger brother. Punk. But no, I'm abusing that word. I don't mean punk in a bad way. There's me and him. I wasn't a photographer. I wasn't a painter. And I'm not a puppeteer. It's just a way to tell a story, to tell my story, to tell Mike Labrie's story, Willie Mae, Isabel, Frank. It's just a way to share. Thank you. If you've made it this far, thank you. I appreciate that. Goodbye.